Hello and welcome to Produced By. Just quickly before we begin, if you enjoy the show, please consider supporting it by joining our Patreon. You can choose from a list of memberships and will receive some exciting rewards. Thank you, and back to the episode. Hello, Liam. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be on.
So, Liam, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Liam Lawson, and I am the editor-in-chief of AI Tool Report. We are the largest US-based AI newsletter out there. We cover pretty much what happens in AI on the daily, and then aside from AI Tool Report as well, we've got lots of kind of shoot-off businesses. We have our tools database, and we're rolling out our pro offering next month. We've got a job board and lots of other things as well. So just kind of heavily involved in the AI space and kind of educating people that are just looking to get into AI. So that's kind of what I do, what my role is. I've just had the last 2.5 weeks off out of office, so I'm just back into work mode and straight into a podcast as well, which I'm excited to get my brain rolling again.
Did you go somewhere for holidays?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been traveling for the past 2.5 years, so that's kind of a big part of my personality. So I was all over the world. I was in Asia for 8 months. I was over in Australia, New Zealand, and then the last 9 months I've been all over Latin America. So the last 2.5 weeks I've just been coming back and settling back into my home country, which is Glasgow. So I'll be here for kind of the foreseeable future. So the last 2.5 weeks was just kind of that transition period of digital nomading to coming back into everyday life and setting up a co-working and buying a flat, as you can maybe see from behind me. It's a new apartment of mine. So yeah, the last 2.5 weeks have just been like getting everything in order essentially.
Yeah, well, that sounds exciting. We'll be excited to find out more about it. But can we start with your background? You said you're from Glasgow, so can you tell us more about, where you come from, about your childhood?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I was born in a place called East Kilbride, which is 20 minutes outside of Glasgow, so just down to the south of that. And yeah, I grew up in a pretty like middle class household. Parents were always lovely. I've got a big brother. I grew up playing rugby and football, as everyone does. And for me, to be honest, I was always very entrepreneurship based. My motivations were always based around money. I was always looking for different ways to do it. I started kind of my first business when I was 17 doing drop shipping, as pretty much everyone did 7 or 8 years ago. And then kind of went to different businesses from there. I had a sustainable clothing business for a while. And yeah, I don't know how far you want me to go into my background, but that's kind of where I come up from, is a lot of sports, a lot of entrepreneurship, perfectly middle class in terms of my background and stuff, but a very happy, healthy childhood. I don't have a word wrong to say about it.
And out of curiosity, with these early businesses that you started, how did they end up?
Yeah, I mean, the first one definitely failed, and that drop shipping business did not go well. I think I was selling, it was always a dream of mine to travel. It was always like something that was in the forefront of my mind, was making money and traveling. So it was like travel goods I was selling. It was called Boltark, the business. And it did not do well. I think we made maybe 4 sales and then failed. So it did not go well. But I mean, from there, like, you've got to fail in that first business. Everyone does. And from there, kind of started other ones. A sustainable clothing business, done a little bit better. I ran a vegan protein business with my brother for a while, which done a little bit better. That was all his doing, and he kind of brought me on to help with certain things like photography and stuff. So yeah, I mean, they got better and better and better with time. Like each failure was more of a success. And there was countless failures in there, but it never kind of deterred me from trying more and starting more, essentially.
So is then entrepreneurship or business also something that you studied? Or was it just as a passion project?
Yeah, it's both. So, I mean, it was always a passion project, but that led me to go and study at a university. So I studied at University of Strathclyde in Glasgow, and done 4 years there, and studied business enterprise and marketing as my degree. So if I'm entirely honest with you, the first 2.5 years were a lot of drinking and not so much studying, as most students kind of do. But
proper university experience.
Exactly. And I'm thankful for it, to be honest, because I speak to some people now that didn't do that in university and maybe took it very seriously, and now they're still in that kind of thing where they're drinking a lot. Whereas I got those years behind
Mm.
me by that point. I got them out of my system, so now I'm not so focused on alcohol or drinking and stuff as well because I've done those years and I'm on to bigger and better things. But yeah, halfway through my third year, that's when COVID hit. So everything went to staying at home. And I decided at the start of 2020, actually before COVID hit, that I was going to go sober for the entire year. So I got those kind of first 2 years of drinking, and I decided that sobriety was the way forward. So when COVID hit, I was kind of right in the depths of sobriety and like tons of exercise, training for a marathon and stuff as well. So this kind of combination of having the sobriety with COVID and stuff, I just ended up focusing on my degree a lot more. And I think my first 2 years of university, I was like scraping by in terms of my scores and stuff. And then by third and fourth year, it was like 80, 90% and stuff in my degree. So I think it was a combination of like that sobriety and that exercise and COVID hitting as well, just kind of more time at home to focus on that. So yeah, a bit of a varied
Mhm.
experience at university, but I did love every second of it. And I loved that by the time I got to third and fourth year, I started taking it really seriously because of that sobriety. It gave me like the time and the mental space to really realize how much I loved the subject of
Yeah.
entrepreneurship. So yeah, I loved every second of
Mm.
it, to be honest.
So what were your plans that once you graduate, what will be your ideal job, or how to start your career basically?
Yeah, I mean, it was always to travel. That was always the plan. As soon as I graduated, bounce off traveling. I never ever wanted to do a grad scheme or go the traditional corporate route. The thought of just working someone else for no opportunity to grow
Mm.
just did not appeal to me whatsoever. I remember speaking to someone the other day and we are talking about it, and he was telling me how at his work he's excelling and doing really well, but they said it's maybe in about 4 years or something we can put you up a pay bracket. And he was saying to me that he realized for these kind of corporate routines, it's not based on your skill level or your quality as a person. It's just based on the amount of years you put as a person, which is just like a concept that is so foreign and never appealed to me. So yeah, I mean, my plan once I
Mm.
graduated was always to travel. So after I graduated, I worked for 6 months for a specialty coffee roaster in Glasgow. Coffee like
Mhm.
became one of those kind of lockdown projects that I just absolutely loved, and I got obsessive with it. And I was trying different beans and a natural and a washed, and just got really obsessed with it. So I went and done specialty coffee roasting and coffee marketing for a while, and then in February of 2022, I bought a one-way ticket to Nepal, and for 2.5 years after then, I was doing the whole traveling and working thing.
Mhm. So what was it that interested you the most about traveling? Was that exploring countries or working like a freedom, or what were the main motivations?
Yeah, I mean, I think out of life, something that's important to me is that I live a really rich life. I want to experience like everything that there is to offer. So during university, the best way
Mhm.
I could get the most out of that experience was doing the drinking and being the partying and doing the student experience. But I don't want to live at home and do the same thing every day and have a routine. Like I want to experience the richness of perspective of what life has to offer. So it was always just getting out there and experiencing different cultures and foods and languages and people. It's just always something that
Mm.
I've wanted to do, and that richness of life, and just like put myself in the forefront of it. And I think there was definitely part of it that scared me, but I've realized very much so that in my life, things that terrify me or make me anxious and stuff, it's usually a buy signal to go and do that thing. Because if I'm anxious about it, it means
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
worth doing.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. I like the mindset. So then, I know you mentioned a few places or areas before, but what was the first country that you moved to?
So the first one I traveled to was Nepal, which was, excuse my
It's
French, but fucking
interesting. I
amazing.
wasn't expecting
Yeah,
that.
I think most people when they go travel like Asia and stuff, they'll start in Thailand and Vietnam. And to be fair, that's what I did after. But Nepal for me,
Mm.
I've always been a big hiker, and my brother had done it a couple years prior and had just been talking about how amazing it was. So yeah, I was just like,
Mm.
what is the most wild, adventurous
It,
place I can think of?
so did it meet expectations that it was actually amazing?
Yeah, I mean, I went and done Everest Base Camp. I'd done the Annapurna Circuit. There was times just hiking for like weeks on end in the Himalayas, like surrounded by nothing else but a couple of other hikers and just like these shacks in the middle of nowhere. And you wake up at night and see the stars and you see the outline of the Himalayas. You can see Everest in the outline around you and stuff. And I just felt
Mm.
so small, but I loved that I felt so small, like
Mhm.
so unimportant. Like I felt so present, I think was the best way of putting it. And it was a proper adventure, which appeals to me. Like I don't like the idea of having too much of a safety net. I like the idea of taking risks, and that really kind of brought that out in me. Really made me feel alive. 100% lived up to expectations and even surpassed them, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it sounds awesome. And I think even the cuisine is delicious, isn't it?
Nepalese, not so much. So you would
Oh,
expect
it's
so
not.
because of
I feel like I
geographically
tried
where
it
it's
and it was
based.
similar to Indian.
It's a lot
Okay.
more dull than Indian, which I was surprised about as well. So they have, because like Nepal is pretty much like a lot of Nepal is at really high elevation, so they don't have the climate to be able to grow
Mhm.
these kind of beautiful herbs and spices that India does. So their kind of
Oh,
main
yeah.
dish in Nepal is a thing called dal bhat, which is essentially just like lentils and like a few other kind of different things. But it's really, really bland. But they call it dal bhat power 24 hour because everyone's just fueled on dal bhat all the time. Everyone just lives on this kind of very basic dish, and you can get it anywhere. Like it's hearty. It'll keep you alive, but it's not. They're not known for flavoursome food. Put it that way.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and while being there, you were working remotely, right?
Yeah, and so at that time, the first couple months where I was away, I was working as a crypto consultant with a friend of mine. So
Oh,
a friend of mine, Mick.
crypto, like cryptocurrency.
Yeah, exactly. So at that time, I was kind of balls deep in crypto, learning about it, kind of consulting people on. I was more the marketing side, so a friend Mick of mine owned a company called Web3 Adventures. I think he still runs it as well. We kind of catch up now and then, but it was basically translating the value of crypto or consulting kind of traditional companies on how to get into like the Web3 market, maybe how to tokenize their assets, stuff like that. That just kind of it was one of those things that started off as a
Mhm.
passion project, and then through enough like self research and stuff, we knew enough about it to be able to communicate to these traditional corporate companies like what the crypto market looked like. You're trying to explain memes to like 50-year-olds that have never seen a crypto coin in their life, no idea what NFTs are. So it was an interesting
Mhm.
experience, but I think that's probably my biggest skill set is the ability to translate value of something. And I think that really
Mhm.
comes into effect with what I do in AI as well. As like AI is a pretty complex topic, and a lot of my job has been able to explain these really complex topics in simple terminology. And I think that's where my skill set like really lies.
Yeah. Mhm. Yep. So then from Nepal, what was the next place that you moved to?
But if we keep going next place, we could be going at this for a while. So the next place after Nepal
Oh,
was
are there that many?
I mean, I'll give you the full list just so we don't have to go down them all. Nepal, Vietnam,
Okay,
Thailand,
okay.
Malaysia, Indonesia, Australia, New Zealand, US, Mexico, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Peru, Colombia, and that's the final list.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah,
So
it's an extensive
out
one.
of this, can you make out of this, can you maybe pick one that you enjoyed the most and the one that you didn't enjoy for some reason?
Yeah, I'd say my three favorites were Mexico, Nepal, and Vietnam. I think the
Mhm.
things that they had in common, the places I visited in those countries, is that they weren't particularly built up for tourists. They were just kind of like their own country, and then if you were there, then it's cool, you were in the country, and that was fine. But they weren't
Mhm.
specifically catered for tourists, and they were just like amazing people, amazing food, like amazing, like strong, like a really like strong sense of identity and culture to them as well. And it was just like amazing to come in and experience them as someone foreign. I'd say the place I probably enjoyed the least would
Mhm.
be Bali and Costa Rica because they were so catered
Isn't
towards
Bali
tourists.
the most mainstream one?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Bali's so mainstream. And then Costa Rica was like that as well. Costa Rica was just filled with American tourists. And you're in this like Central American country, and everyone, all of the Costa Ricans will speak English with you, which I found really frustrating because I was like, I'm learning
Mhm.
Spanish while I was over there. So I was trying to practice my Spanish. And
Yeah, yeah.
Costa Rica is so built up for tourists that you're just having these English conversations all the time. And it really frustrated me. And it was just like I felt too coddled, like I was just too taken care of, and I was like, this it doesn't feel like a raw experience. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now, are you? I mean, now you are in the Glasgow, but is the place that you are going to US, or is it the latest country that you've been to?
Yeah, US was the country I was in before this. So we're based in Austin, in Texas, as a company. So I was there for a little while early this year. I'll be back in Austin later this year as well. And then I think the plan next year is do a full-time move to Argentina. After that, I think is what's on the cards.
Wow. And why Argentina? Out of curiosity.
I mean, just everyone I've met traveling has spoken such amazing things about it. The food is apparently amazing. I'm a big kind of carnivore. I'm kind of currently doing like a paleo diet. So they've got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of kind of like cheap steak there. You can just live like a king if you're earning in US dollars. Live in Argentina, like you can live a great lifestyle. The weather's amazing. They've got Patagonia down in Ushuaia as well. They've got Bariloche, so a lot of hiking, and I can practice my Spanish and like really kind of flesh out that skill. Plus, I mean, like us as a company, like we're dealing with majoritively US clients, so it makes more sense for me to be on a US time zone, which is where kind of Argentina
Mm-hmm.
helps, and I'll be taking trips back and forth to Austin as well, and with being based in it, so kind of
Yeah.
thinking behind that.
And I guess some interesting things might be happening there thanks to their new president.
Yeah.
From
I
what
mean,
I
we'll
saw
see what
about him.
happens by the end of the year or next year by the time I'm there with Malay. See what the infrastructure looks like, see what the protests look
Yeah.
like. It'll certainly be an interesting time, but there's something about that in a sadistic sort of way. I don't know if this is horrible coming from an outsider, but the fact that it is in like this really interesting time period, I think appeals to me somewhat. That it is like a little bit unstable.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of change, and
Yeah,
if
yeah,
I
yeah.
go there as well, I'll learn a lot about people's opinions of the country and the political stance and why things matter. Like people will be more strongly opinionated at this particular period of time, and it'll be a big movement for change and stuff as well. So I think there's something about all of that that does appeal to me as well. That I'll be able to actually really
Mm-hmm.
experience like the Argentinian spirit and why people care about the country too.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds really exciting. I agree. And what is it like living in Austin? If I'm not mistaken, isn't it the city that quite a few famous or well-known people moved from California?
Yeah, I mean, I think Austin's known for a couple of things. One would be the comedy scene. So obviously, Joe Rogan moved there, and then a lot of other comics and people in like
Yeah,
the entertainment business moved out as well.
I think Lex is
So
based there as well.
yeah, I think Lex is out there.
Uh,
Tim Ferriss is out there. Um, Shane Gillis and stuff are all out there as well. So there's a lot of like huge names. Chris Williamson, who's probably my favorite
oh,
podcaster.
really?
Yeah, Chris Williamson from Modern Wisdom. He's out in Austin as well. I think he's my favorite podcaster, the guy I listen to the most, and kind of not
Yeah,
closely
he's
model
awesome.
my
I like
life
him as
after, but
well.
I respect a lot of the things he does and how he speaks about things. So yeah, there's a lot of
Hmm.
huge people that love out there, and kind of my experience of Austin as well. Like the age demographic is mainly between the ages of 25 and 35. So you've got like a lot of young people that are out exercising. You'll see on the weekends, everyone's like, there's people out in big groups of bikes, big groups of running, big groups of kayaking down the river. They'll go to high rocks classes, and then at night you've got like an amazing music scene, amazing comedy scene and stuff as well. So there's just there's so much going on there right now. Not to
Mhm.
mention, in comparison to Glasgow, where the weather is absolutely shocking, it makes a world of difference to be able to step out and actually experience some sun on the daily. So
Yeah.
that's a big factor. I've grown up in cold environments my whole life, and I hate it. The winter does not make me happy. So I want to live somewhere with a
Mhm.
considerable amount of sun would be nice.
Yeah. And when you moved to Austin, was it your deliberate decision, or was it maybe because the company told you that you need to move to this specific city?
Yeah, so I mean, me and Martin. So I'll kind of go into the story of how we got acquainted. So Martin is our CEO and founder, and I'm now a co-owner of the business. So it's kind of completely independent of I can move where I want to and
Oh, wow.
stuff. But me and Martin, so he's the CEO and founder of like AI Tool Report. The way we got connected was actually via a Twitter DM. So shout
Mm.
out to my boy Mitko, the guy that I worked with at Web3 Adventures and the crypto consultancy. I was just chilling one day, and then he sent me a message on WhatsApp. He was like, "Oh, I follow this guy on Twitter. Smart was posting a lot of AI content at the time, and he was like, "Oh, he's actually looking for a writer." And I'd been writing like online independently for a couple of years. I wrote a lot on Medium about philosophy and lifestyle and everything I was interested in. And he just threw me this kind of Twitter thread, and at the bottom, Martin being like, "Oh, I'm actually looking for someone to write the AI newsletter." And I just dropped Martin a Twitter DM. We hopped on a call for an hour, and literally the rest is history. Like that's how we got started. Is just a random Twitter DM, hopping on a call, and we were good to go.
Wow, that's cool. Out of those cold messages and all kinds of offers that you receive, wouldn't expect something like this. So really cool.
Yeah, I mean the thing
And it's
is as
also great
well,
that
like
allows you to travel, as you said. Yeah.
I was gonna say at that point as well, I was applying for lots of writing jobs and like just traditional roles and stuff, and I think I got denied from like 130 like traditional like LinkedIn applications and Indeed and stuff like that. Like just hadn't got accepted for any of them, and then a Twitter DM throws
Mm.
it out there, and now I'm doing like a kind of dream job where I like absolutely love what I do and who I work with and stuff. I think it just goes to show like if you're looking for like building your career in this day and age, there's a real pathway to do things similar to like what yourself, like what you're doing, and your work. You're doing
Mhm.
podcasting. You've started yourself.
If you want to boost your online presence, check out our digital marketing agency called Trailblazed. You can also enroll in our Skillshare course called The 10 Tips on How to Succeed in Your Creative Career, which was inspired by the podcast. Lastly, make sure to subscribe to our weekly newsletter called Creative Spotlight to stay up to date with the show and more. Links are in the show notes. Thanks.
I'd love to kind of hear a little bit more, just if I can turn a question on you about how you kind of get started in the podcast. I can see from your LinkedIn you've been doing it around a year now. Is it some sort of marketing agency as well? I'd love to hear a little bit more about like how you started, what you do.
Oh, about myself.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. So I started podcast. It was just as a passion project. I mean, it's still
Mm.
actually a passion project. But before, I worked in VFX industry, in visual
Mm.
effects, because I was always passionate about film and I wanted to start a career there. So I worked in this amazing VFX company. It was really awesome. It was like a dream become a reality. And because of the people that I worked with and all the amazing projects that we worked with, I thought that I had access to people with great stories, with big careers, and a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. And it probably somehow sparked the idea to start a podcast because I can speak with these people. And hopefully, it's going to sound cliche, but inspire other people that they can achieve that as well. Because often you might expect that these people, I don't know, come from backgrounds from Hollywood or whatever. But when I speak with them, you actually find out that they are kind of regular people, but they just worked hard and somehow achieved that, which I think is really
Mm.
inspiring. And at the same time, I'm a curious person, so I like to talk about new people. It's like, for example, with you, we don't know each other, but now I meet someone completely new with interesting stories. I like to talk with others. And then lastly, it's probably also motivating for me because, as you know, everyone sometimes feels ups and downs. But when you listen to someone and his story and his words, it helps me to continue basically pursuing my dreams and working, on the stuff that I enjoy and on any goals.
Yeah,
Just
amazing.
briefly, I don't want to talk about too much in this episode since it's about you.
Yeah, I totally
But
understand. I'm just curious as well.
appreciate you asking.
Of course. I'm just curious as well, just before we turn questions around on me as well. How many episodes have you done of the podcasting now?
It's actually going to be. I've got a few that I haven't released, but it's 60, more than 60, because after each 10 episodes I release a special, so it's going to be over 60 episodes by now, and it will be a year pretty soon. I try to stay consistent, release every week, so far it's going well.
Yeah, damn, it's impressive. I used to run a podcast as well, and I got to 33 episodes. And the plan is to pick that back up again as well. So I know how hard it is to stay consistent with that and
Nice.
stay on it.
And why did you stop, or what made you stop?
I think at the point it just became too much. So what had happened is I started the podcast while I was living in Australia. And it was going well. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I really enjoyed the process of podcasting. But when I started working with Martin online, like that work just took over. Because there was just so much to be done and so much of my day was taken up with it. And then from there, after Australia, I started traveling again to like New Zealand and then Mexico and stuff like that as well. So because I didn't have a base, it was really hard to stay consistent with it. But the plan is definitely to pick that back up again now that I've got a base. I'm trying to get a few guests in, and we've got a podcast for AI Tool Report as well. I've already recorded 2 of them, which should be releasing in the next couple of weeks. I do love the kind of art of conversation and podcasting, and as you said, kind of meeting people that are interesting as well and getting the kind of story behind just that profile that you see on LinkedIn or Twitter.
Yeah. And what was the podcast about? Was it about AI or not?
So, I mean, the podcast was just about like things I was interested in. So it was called This That Podcast, and I tried to make it as variable as possible. So I'd done a couple interviews with like cold brew and coffee businesses in Melbourne. One of the podcasts I'd done a marathon as a podcast. So I took my mic out with me, done a marathon, and at different parts of it, decided to podcast. I'd done a 72-hour water fast as a podcast, where for 72 hours I ate nothing and just podcasted different parts of it. I'd done a Hinge date. So, you know, Hinge, the dating app?
Yeah.
I'd done that, so I asked a Hinge date, like, would you want to do a podcast on the first time you meet me? And we recorded a podcast on the first time we met each other, which was interesting. I'd done a podcast in a sauna. Like, it was just like I just wanted to push the boundaries of like what a podcast would be and try things that hadn't been tried before. So it was just a bunch of eclectic things that I thought were interesting.
No, it sounds like a really innovative idea. And especially with the podcasting scene that is quite oversaturated, this sounds like something that helps you to stand out.
Yeah. I think there's so many interesting like opportunities for podcasting. Have you ever heard of like the terminology of like a hot girl walk?
Probably not.
Okay, so it's just like this kind of meme that's kind of throwing about like TikTok and Twitter and like Instagram, the idea of a hot girl walk. So it's like hot girls go for walks in the morning, right? And then loads of people I know, all the guys I know and stuff are like, oh, we'll go for a morning hot girl walk. It's just a wellness walk in the morning. But it could be a really interesting way to like spice up the idea of a podcast where you get big tech CEOs and stuff on for a podcast and you're both going for a hot girl walk. So people's brains tend to work better when they're actually walking. Do you know what I'm talking about?
There is this podcast I discovered, and I think this guy's doing the podcast on a walk with someone, because I cannot remember the name now, but I discovered because he was speaking with Ali Abdal. I cannot remember the name now, but it's like a concept that they're exercising or they go for a walk outside and do the podcast during that. So I guess it's something similar. And the guy actually the podcast is quite big when I yeah.
You need to send me it because I'm curious about that now. It's just always been an idea in my head for the past 2 weeks because you got these big tech CEOs. Everyone wants to get out and walk and exercise, and it means these
Mm.
people that you are interviewing, they've taken the time to interview you. They can actually just go out for a walk and get a coffee and be on the phone to you at the same point.
Yeah,
So I think that would be a good idea. I just think there's loads of ways that we could take podcasting. Obviously, the audio quality is going to suffer with that, but maybe it's a trade-off people are kind of willing to make to
it's
have that kind of conversation.
yeah, and especially if you are based in Austin, it sounds like you may have access to some great minds, CEOs, founders, and people like that.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it remotely. You could also do it in person. Like, there's so many different ways that you could kind of push that, I guess.
Mm. I hope that since you said that now kind of publicly, it will you will need to commit to it, and we will see some cool stuff in the future, some good content.
You know what? I love that as an idea. Social pressure. Give me a month, and I'll make sure we get an episode out of Hot Girl Walks. I'll make it happen.
Yeah, sounds good. And then I want to at least a bit discuss your business in detail and what you do in the business in AI. So can you introduce the company a bit and also what you do in there?
Yeah, so our company is called AI Tool Report. We're basically a congregator of the news, and we go through, kind of scour the web, and then try to provide you with the best daily digest that there is on the market. Every day we'll kind of cover breaking news, and we'll cover prompting and automations like engineering and that way. We'll give you some reading resources to read through kind of at your own pace. We'll introduce you to different like AI tools through our kind of training tools section, and we're kind of constantly just looking for ways that we can kind of deliver more value to you so that you can learn AI at an easy pace. That's kind of our main business right now. From that, we have like a bunch of different kind of offshoot businesses. We created accreditations that were in partnership with kind of some top AI companies. So we created in partnership with Zembly, Guide, Graft, and then kind of like prompting experts, kind of business experts and stuff as well, to give you an accreditation that you can share via LinkedIn that shows that you have a very kind of base level understanding of AI and you know what to do. We did have a job board that's currently under maintenance right now. We are actually relaunching our pro offering in partnership with HubSpot in July, which I'm really excited to kind of talk about at a later point. And
With
we do have a
HubSpot,
SaaS.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. So we'll be launching that 1st of July. And the idea about a pro offering is we have like an entire database and catalog of basically like these resources you can go into. But the biggest kind of selling point of it is that we're going to be producing a once weekly ultra premium AI newsletter. And it's all about actionable things. So we're taking case studies with real businesses, going in and interviewing them, and then we're taking all the different tools that you could use. So if you're in marketing, we might look at like Julius AI and different kind of 3 actionable insights that you can use a specific tool to do a specific task and actually walk you through that as well. And then there's kind of loads of other parts. So HubSpot are providing some free gifts and stuff for the pro offering, and then you'll obviously have access to the pro community. So people willing to pay a little bit more to kind of network with the right people in that as well. So really excited about that launching in July too.
Yeah, sounds awesome and sounds like big plans for the company.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I think something we've missed as a business, as a company since we've started is a real engagement with our community. So obviously we produce kind of LinkedIn content and we have newsletter and stuff, but we did realize that although we're producing really high quality material, we're essentially shouting at people. And it's something we've just realized that like we have done wrong as a business. We've not done as much actual engagement with our community and support for our community as we should have been doing.
Yeah.
So that's a kind of real big push over the next 6 months to a year is like how can we provide as much quality material and training and resources so that especially for me, like my focus in the business is really giving these materials to entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, people within businesses that want to automate processes and give them the right tools and knowledge to save time or earn more with AI. It's kind of where we're looking at for the foreseeable.
Yeah. And how many people are in the company?
So we're up to around 6 core members right now. We have some agencies that kind of run some external things, but 6 core members at the moment. We'll probably be making some new hires for different kind of function roles within the next couple of months as we continue to grow. So yeah, we'll see how the year kind of pans out. But we started with just me, myself, and Arturo as well, who's our creative director. Doubled the team within the past year, which is exciting, and it's looking pretty good for growth for the foreseeable as well.
Yeah. And what does your day look like? I assume it will probably differ, but is there like, do you have a routine or is it literally different every day, or what is it like?
Yeah, I mean, right now is different every day. I'm trying to standardize up more. We've just rented out a co-working space in Glasgow at the moment, so we'll be using that to kind of create a bit of an office and a bit of a routine. But right now, it's just like my kind of role as kind of editor in chief as well. It's very much like project management. So a lot of it is later in the day, I'll have meetings with kind of relevant key people to different projects, but it's just pushing kind of key projects on. We'll read through the kind of newsletter, take a look at like the different parts of the business. How can X, Y, and Z be improved? And then with the launch of the pro newsletter, it's kind of setting up the different environments and that. So we'll be hosting it on school, making sure we've all got the resources there. We've got automations in place as well. So yeah, a lot of it is just like making tweaks to existing parts of the business, and then kind of taking new projects that we can launch and being like, okay, how can we look as far into the future, understand what the market wants, and then deliver the most value to said market as well.
Yeah. And I can imagine that now with the boom around AI and recently how it's, been trending everywhere, is it difficult to stand out from the competition? Can you see that there are emerging other companies? And if so, what do you do, or how does your company manage to stand out?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, like the newsletter space specifically is one of those places there is like good competition. So I'd say like our biggest kind of competitors in the space are the Rundown, run by like Round Chung, who does a great job of that, and Superhuman as well, who do a great job as well. The Can brothers do an amazing job with producing that. Yeah, I mean, like there's people producing great quality material and great quality insights. I think where we're kind of going as a company is we're kind of trying to stand out with a more authoritative tone, so do more kind of like true journalism, and that kind of fits in with what we do with the podcast as well. So Arturo primarily runs a podcast, and he does a lot of podcasts with commissioners and governors and stuff in the US as well. So we really try to differentiate in that way and bringing like, instead of giving you the meme of the day, we're actually giving you like proper content you can use. And it's the same with those kind of automations we're providing, the actionable insights. We're trying to provide you with like things that are going to make a difference rather than culturally what's going on in the scene. And I think that's really where we stand out as a business.
Yeah. And you are also active on LinkedIn. So can you tell us more about your presence on LinkedIn? Do you see it as something that helps you to create a brand for the company, or are you actually building a brand for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, so far it has been about building a brand for the company as well, like myself and Martin. And obviously, I've been on my 2.5 week hiatus, so I've not posted in a while. I'm just getting back into the routine of that. But yeah, it's mainly been about the company, to be honest. I think the way we're kind of looking at it, if you understand, Barstool Sports, you heard of them before?
I haven't, to be honest.
Barstool is like this company that's based in the US. They're kind of like a sports media company run by a guy called Dave Portnoy. And the way he looks at it is he hires individual creators to work under the brand of Barstool, but still kind of produce their own content. And I think that's how we look at like AI Tool Report. Like we now have 6 members. Myself, who's more into this entrepreneurship side of things. Martin, who runs the business and is really into like actually scaling things. Arturo, who's a little bit more creative and does things on like the political landscape. Kyle, who's just been brought on and does a lot around stocks and trading. So if you imagine us all as like individual people with these kind of expert areas that we actually excel in, we're all under that AI Tool Report branding, but we've got these different areas that we kind of excel and create in. So that's the way we're kind of looking at it. Is like we are building out those personal brands and those kind of personal expertise, but it's all
Mhm.
under that kind of umbrella of AI to report because that's what we're producing and work on and build upon.
Yeah, yeah, sounds cool. And you mentioned it before, your inspiration, or when we discussed modern wisdom and Chris Williamson. Who are your maybe other inspirations or some people that you look up to, if there are any?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to say with inspirations. I'd say Martin, my boss, especially, is like he's been a huge inspiration for me. We've obviously met multiple times in real life as well, and he's just like um, such a good guy. He does a lot with effective altruism as well. So from the business stuff, like the money he makes from it, like a lot of that goes to going to like relevant charities and supporting other people. So he's a huge inspiration and just has a lot of these stuff dialed in. I'd say him. I'd say Chris Williamson. I love the stuff that he does around like mindfulness specifically. He's done like the 3 year sober and stuff as well. It's something I'm going to be start to do as of next year. So those are kind of big ones for me.
Mm.
Tim Ferriss probably. It's how I got into entrepreneurship in the first place. Reading like the 4 Hour Work Week, which was
Is it
something that
because
really
you read?
yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly. You
was
knew
going to
exactly what I was
mention.
going to say, right? 4 Hour Work Week was like the book that made entrepreneurship make sense to me. I was like if this guy can do it and start a protein business, then I can do it too. And obviously, I
Hmm.
like his idea of being like the human guinea pig. So he just goes and tries everything for himself, which really speaks to my kind of philosophy of trying to get like the richness out of life as well. So I
Hmm.
love that idea of like experimentation and trying everything. I'd say those three people are probably kind of my biggest influences and inspiration.
Hmm. Yeah, I was then about to ask you maybe about some books if you are reading, but I guess it will be maybe the one from Tim Ferriss, or are there any other?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think the books that like I kind of I'd say that I connect with, I bond with, and like I appreciate most is usually some degree of like personal development and spirituality. I'd say
Hmm.
the single book that I've got the most value out of is one called, you may have heard of it before, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So like one of the most like kind of popular
I agree.
self-development books. So I think the thing I got the most value out of is this idea of a mission statement. So he talks about the concept of having a mission statement in life and like writing down what your real principles and your values are and being driven from those
Hmm.
principles and values rather than like what your immediate wants and needs are. And that's kind of like a concept that's been reiterated in like countless books, like Principles by Ray Dalio says exactly the same. A lot of other people talk about it the same as well, and I think that's something that drives me is like
Hmm.
having those principles, reminding myself what my principles are and like what really matters to me, and letting that affect my decision making most rather than oh can I make Y amount of dollars or Z amount of dollars this year. Like it doesn't matter if it's not in line with what's actually going to make you truly satisfied and happy as a person. So I'd say that. Some people could think it's a
Yeah.
cop out because it's got like a really clickbaity title, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But I love that book. I reread it all the time.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. And even if it may be clickbait, you still need to make it somehow catchy to stand out, from the market, because there are loads. And I agree. I read it as well, and it's an amazing book. Can only recommend it to people as well.
Yeah.
And as we will be finishing soon, can you tell people when they can follow you, whether it's you or a company, or anything that you would like to share?
Yeah, I mean, to follow the company, we've got like our website up and running. We can see the business and the newsletter and all the offshoots, and it's just aitoolreport.com. Pretty easy. Myself, I'm on LinkedIn, just Liam Lawson. I would say so. I don't know if you watch F1, but there's a pretty famous now F1 driver with the exact same name as me, Liam Lawson, and he's younger and handsome and very successful. So if you type in my name, it'll come up this F1 driver. So I'm not that guy. I do not drive F1. This guy has overtaken me on
I
Google
didn't know, to be
rankings.
honest.
Yeah, type in Liam
And
Lawson
is
in
he?
Google, and it just comes up this Kiwi F1 driver.
Oh, I was about to ask you if he's from Scotland, so he's from New Zealand.
Yeah, he's from New Zealand, and he's younger and he's handsome, and I hate
Oh,
it. I hate it.
that's really cool. I didn't know that. I will add any links to the show notes. And before we finish, is there anything final that you would like to share? Whether it's some kind of message or something that I should have asked you and didn't ask you, or just send anything to the audience.
Finish. I've got one answer to that, and I've got one question for you as well. So, my answer to it would be that for anyone kind of thinking that they can't do like an online business or like they'll never make it and stuff like that, I think all it is about increasing your surface area of luck, right? It's just, it doesn't matter what you do. It could be writing online, it can be podcasting, it could be taking pictures of post-it notes and then put it on an Instagram account. It doesn't matter what you do. All that matters is that you do something by yourself. Find a passion project, find what that is, and just do it and post about it online and be consistent. And if you do any of them for long enough, like your surface area of luck just increases and increases and increases. I found like from podcasting, just doing 30 episodes, the amount of opportunities that came my way were incredible. Like I'd never have expected podcasting to actually add so much value to my life. And it did, even just doing that. And then writing online, I was writing into the ether, no one reading it, but that gave me this skill that's really applicable to my job today, and people really appreciate that as well. So I would just say try, just do something. It doesn't fucking matter what it is. Do anything and just get after it and do it. Don't get stuck behind like that terrifying notion that it has to be everything right now or it has to be super successful within a year. Like just do it regardless results. Do something, keep doing it, and find your kind of niche from there. And that'd be my words of advice. Don't
Yeah.
get caught up in that. And eventually your surface area of luck will just become large enough that opportunities will come your way.
I
And
like it,
then
and I can only agree with you.
the last question I'd have for you is like from doing these 60 episodes, what's maybe one or two common threads that you've noticed across the people you talk to? Because I imagine you talk to a lot of like entrepreneurs, people in the space, people in AI and tech and stuff. So what are maybe one or two common threads you've noticed and maybe the personality traits across these different people you spoke to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it may be something that I mentioned before, which was that people often think that, or at least that's what I would think, that you are successful, so maybe you are, I don't know, brought up with rich parents. I don't know, the background, that the beginnings were easy for you. That's maybe I don't know, that was how do you say it, put it on a silver plate, but that's not really true, because when I speak with these people, I can see, I would say, the patterns that most of the people doubted themselves in the beginnings, that it was hard, it was tough. Quite often, they had failures when it come, for example, with first businesses, even such as what you said, or I don't know, tried several different ventures until they found something that finally worked out. So I think, again, it's going to sound like a cliche, but behind these successful people, there is a long journey, and journey that was not full of failures, but they experienced failures, they learned from it, and didn't give up. Because all of us have ups and downs, often failures, and you want to give up, but ultimately you need to learn from it, and then hopefully use what you learned, and then continue going despite those failures. So I think that is something important that I learned from them. And then one more thing that I would mention is, don't compare yourself to others. That's advice that I heard from many people, and it's also something that I often do as well, although I know that I shouldn't do it. So I try to remind myself, because you see someone successful, especially these days on social media, beautiful pictures, amazing life, holidays, whatever. But you don't know what's the background. You don't know what's the truth. You don't know what was the journey. How did they get there? If it's truth, if it's not truth. And everyone has a different journey, a different background. So definitely don't compare yourself to others. And that will be probably the message that I would try to share I think it makes you happier. It helps you, and there is this amazing quote. I think it's the comparison is a thief of joy. I'm not sure. I don't want to say something that is not true, but I think it may be from Mark Twain or someone. So that will be good advice. Yeah.
Yeah, I think exactly what you said there. Those two things, super important for people to hear. So thank you for sharing.
Mm. No, I appreciate the message. It's I wasn't expecting it, so it's really nice that you asked me a question as well. Although it's a podcast about yourself.
I mean, you said before we started,
But
let's just do it as a friendly conversation. So here we are.
that is a good point. Yeah. Yeah. And I really enjoyed it. So just to be aware of time, I want to say a huge thank you. It was great to meet you. Been following you on LinkedIn, so I feel like I've known you a bit. So it wasn't like with a stranger, but I really enjoyed it. It was inspiring. You've got some amazing plans, amazing stuff ahead for you, for the company. I will make sure to keep following and supporting. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Wish you good luck and speak soon.
Thank you, bro. Speak soon.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app, get in touch to provide your feedback, or share any ideas for future guests. Thank you and see you soon.